Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fink.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
Get it to you!
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you know, a big DJ Khaled guy.
Hands thrown up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
They have no swag. They have no nothing.
Terrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Hello and welcome to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. We are streaming live over on YouTube. We are streaming over on Stadium. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Jeff Goodman with me. And Jeff, it was a wild, wild weekend in the world of the transfer portal. Providence has continued to get work done. USC feels like they've landed about 27 guys over the course of the last 48 hours. Kentucky got a commitment. Arkansas got a commitment. Duke got a couple of commitments. Baylor landed maybe the best point guard in the transfer portal, and Louisville and Indiana are also continuing to add pieces. It was a wild weekend in the portal, but nobody had a better weekend than Dusty May, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, who landed roughly maybe 5 or 6 people out of the portal. A couple of freshmen committed: Danny Wolf, Roddy Gale, Sam Walters, Trey Donaldson, Reuben Jones. They got Justin Pippen. So, Jeff, let me ask you this. As of today, is Michigan winning the transfer portal?
I mean, the Dustbuster's getting it done, right? He's cleaning up right now. These old Dustbusters. You remember the old Dustbusters? That's what Dusty May's doing right now. He's just cleaning up. He's just vacuuming up these transfers, getting in the portal, getting shit done. And no, he's done a good job. Here's why. Not only has he assembled a good group, but he's assembled, to me, a group that fits together so far. You know, and that's the key to me is obviously they're going to be better than they were a year ago. It's hard not to be. I mean, it was a disaster in Ann Arbor under Juwan Howard the last couple of years. But I think what Dusty's done is he's got momentum. You know, Trey Donaldson's a tough, hard-nosed kid who came from Auburn. Maybe not a traditional point guard, but if you surround him with enough shooters, enough pieces, and he shot it pretty well last year. I'm still not convinced he's a 40% three-point shooter. But Danny Wolf, skilled from Yale, big man, 6'11", 7 feet. Obviously, Roddy Gale's proven as a wing scorer at Ohio State. Sam Walters can really shoot the crap out of the ball. He shot almost 40% in his 1 year at Alabama. And then Reuben Jones, kind of underrated. Versatile guard, can really, really get after it in the defensive end. So you've got Jones and Donaldson that can really guard, and then you've got some skilled guys up front. So I like this group. He's obviously still got to add a couple more guys. He got Scottie Pippen's younger son, a fairly highly recruited guard. He also got another guard who had committed to him at FAU. So, he's starting to put a team together.
Yeah, I still think he needs another big physical body, maybe someone that can kind of protect the rim a little bit better than Danny Wolf. But I do like the way that
he's going to get that. Wait, Rob, can I give you a little bit of a heads up here?
Oh, I know.
I believe he's going to get a big guy who played for him and was a key piece for them in Boca Raton. So I think, again, Vlad Golden, it would surprise me if Vlad Golden does not end up in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, so he needs to get that piece, I think, to be able to kind of bring everything else together. But I do like the way that the roster is kind of filling out. What do you make of Roddy Gale's commitment? Because the one thing that I have found interesting, especially over the weekend, is some of the transfers that have gone from one program to their arch nemesis, to their biggest rival. Roddy Gale going from Ohio State to Michigan. Aiden Holloway going from from Auburn to Alabama. I think Roddy Gale is a guy that throughout much of last season, he put up the numbers, but are you buying him as a potential all Big Ten caliber guy? Because if you just look at the stats, he's a guy that can put up numbers that'll get you in that conversation.
I don't know if any of these guys are going to be all, first team all Big Ten guys, but I think if you have 3 or 4 guys that are, second team, third team all Big Ten guys, Roddy Gale's a proven scorer. That's what, again, if you're putting this team together, you got to have some shooters. You got to have some guys that get after it in the defensive end. You got to have a guy down low, and they may have two, and Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden that you could throw the ball to. So, yeah, I think Roddy Gale, and then you add one more to me. Probably they'll add one more transfer, and that might be Golden. They might add one more after that is what I'm saying. I think they'll get Golden and one more transfer. And then you're in business. Again, listen, nobody's expecting Michigan to make a deep tournament run this year. But if they get to the tournament and they get momentum, which is half the battle these days, and get NIL, which they have, then they're in the equation. They're back relevant again, where they really haven't been that way for at least a year.
What about Nelly Davis? You mentioned Vlad Golden as one of the guys from FAU potentially transferring to Michigan. We saw Elijah Martin commit to Florida over the weekend as well. Is there a chance that Nelly Davis could follow Dusty to Michigan?
No, I don't see it. Everything I've been told is, and the hard part is some of these places, and I'm not saying this was part of the problem at Michigan, obviously with transfer admissions. Some of these places, it's really hard to get kids in after their junior year. Like the Vandy's, the Michigans, like high academic institutions, they don't want to necessarily take a kid for 1 year, into their school. I don't think Nelly Davis follows Dusty May. I think Nelly Davis right now has his mind set on going to the NBA if he can. And then if that doesn't work and he can't get at least a two-way, and I still think maybe I'm crazy. Listen, you can give me your thoughts on this one. I think, let me finish my sentence and then you can give me your thoughts on Nelly Davis to the NBA. But I would say to me, like Arkansas would be the favorite there right now for Nelly Davis if he doesn't decide to go to the NBA and he withdraws. But I just have a hard time, Rob, and tell me if I'm wrong when you watch him. I just see him as a great second unit scorer in the NBA. He's got length. He can go create a bucket. He is tough. He'll rebound. Like, I think he's perfect, like in the 30s or 40s in the second round of the NBA draft.
Yeah, especially in this year's draft where it is a little bit weaker and you'll be able to kind of sneak up there a little bit higher. I'm with you there. I mean, the thing about Nelly is he's taller than I think people realize, right? You kind of think he's like a 6'1", 6'2" guy where he's probably got, he's probably 6'4". He's strong. He's tough. I like him as a combo off the bench. I think you kind of have his role pegged. I would not love if he ended up as a Arkansas Razorback. I don't know if that's necessarily the best fit, but that's a perfect way to tease that we have a list of the top 10 available transfers, top 10 players that are currently in the transfer portal. We'll be talking about that here in a little bit. You won't be surprised to find out that Nelly Davis is number one on our list, knowing how much Jeff Goodman loves Janelle Davis. The other team that I think is right there in the mix for winning this year's portal. There's two really that I think have kind of, would you say dust busted, cleaned up the most? USC is one of them, but I think Providence, I would have Providence number 2 right now in terms of transfer portal recruiting classes. They picked up Wesley Cardette from Chicago State over the weekend. He committed live on the field of 68. They already have Bensley Joseph committed. They already have Jabri Abdul-Rahim committed, and they already have Christ Ndoko committed, the high upside combo big man from Temple. With the potential of Bryce Hopkins coming back off of the knee injury, I do think that Kim English has done a really good job rebuilding and reloading this roster. Replacing Devin Carter is going to be a big task, but I think that he's found some players that can potentially be able to do it. I like what he's done over there in Providence, and I think that they have the pieces to be able to make a run to the tournament this year.
Yeah, I mean, I like it too. My biggest thing still looking at it is like, all right, is the backcourt strong enough? Do they have a dude in that backcourt? Like Wes Cardette is, to me, more of an off-the-ball guy. He can play on the ball too, but do they have a facilitator? Is Jaden Pierre going to take that next step? And obviously, Bryce Hopkins, is he going to be healthy? He was good when he was healthy this past year, but I don't think he was as good as we thought he was going to be. And again, sometimes coming back from that injury, there's going to be some rust there. I like what Kim's done. He's got some veterans, and I love the big kid, Ndoko. Like he's a terrific talent, high upside guy, shot blocker, rebounder, all that. And the key, and one of the things that we lose sight on, I think a lot, is when you look at, really, some of the teams that went deep in the NCAA tournament last year, teams that went to the Final Four. You look at UConn and Purdue, and even Alabama to some extent, and they all returned like a core group. I'm not saying their whole team. Purdue returned almost their whole team, but like UConn returned a pretty good core, even though they lost some guys. You got to have some guys back that know your system, that know you, that have played together. And I think that's one of the advantages for Kim and Luce. Obviously, losing Devin Carter is going to be a huge blow, but having enough guys back that know Kim, that know Providence, that know how he likes to play and coach, I think that's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, the problem with the way that some people view the portal is I think it's a little bit of a red flag when you're building your entire roster out of the transfer portal, because I think that there are maybe like 2 or 3 guys in any given year that you can take out of the portal and say, okay, that is someone that we can build an entire team around, right? Sometimes you see it in a year, sometimes it takes 2 years to get there. But I don't know. Well, let's just take Michigan, for example, right? Like, I don't know if any of those guys are necessarily like you said it with Roddy Gale. That's probably the best guy that they got. And is he necessarily an all Big Ten caliber player, or is he someone that can take Michigan to the top half of the Big Ten and be the best player on a team that is a tournament team? Well, I think you're kind of, it's close and it's a conversation. And when you look at someone like a USC and you look at Arkansas and you look at Kentucky and you look at the work that they're going to have to do just to be able to fill a team, Arkansas's got 2 guys committed, and we're talking about them potentially being a tournament team. Like, that's hard to do. We saw Rick Pitino go out and get one of the best transfer classes that anybody had at St. John's last year, and it wasn't enough to get him to the tournament. You can make an argument he probably should have been in. There's a case that can be made that they deserved a bid, but it is a very difficult thing. The best thing that you could do in the portal, and the best way to kind of attack it, the way that I think has had the most success, is you're plugging gaps out of the portal, right? You're not trying to rebuild a team. You're not trying to find your superstar. You're plugging gaps. And I do think that with Providence, assuming Bryce Hopkins comes back healthy, and Justin Fernandez comes back healthy, I think that you are kind of plugging some gaps there with players. Now, the point guard situation is going to be one that we got to kind of see how it plays out. But, I can't get what Jaden Pierre did against, was it Creighton in the quarterfinals of the Big East tournament? I can't get that out of my head. He was awesome in that game. So I'm willing to bet on Providence. I think that they have a good chance to get back there. What about USC? They've added 7 players, a couple of freshmen, a couple of big names from the portal, Chibozo Abo, Matt Nolan from Yale, Josh Cohen from UMass by way of Arkansas, St. Thomas, Bryce Pope. They got some pretty good players there, but I don't know. Again, that's another situation where I don't know if they have like a dude.
They don't. I mean, they don't have a dude, but they're doing something different than what Muss did in Fayetteville, right? Last year was a complete train wreck, and largely, the chemistry wasn't good, right? They had some high maintenance guys. I think they decide they want to build the culture right now at USC and do it with high character guys. The upside's not going to be there, Rob. But again, we know Muss can coach them up. Like, we know that's a strength of Eric Musselman's to be able to do. I just don't know. Like to me, their SAT scores and ACT scores are going to be much higher than they were at Arkansas. We know that. But is their talent going to be high enough? Is their ceiling going to be high enough to do anything more than make the NCAA tournament and maybe win a game? I'm not sold on that.
Honestly, I'm not sold on them being able to get to the tournament right now with the pieces that they have put together. Again, like, who's the all guy? I love Chibuzo Agbo, right? But I don't know if he's necessarily moving to the Big Ten. Is he someone that's going to be able to move the needle for you? Is he going to be a top 15 player in that conference? I don't think he is.
No, probably not. But again, if you've got enough depth and you don't fall off too much from 1 to 8 or 9, maybe it's power by numbers and you use that depth to your advantage. And I just don't know if it's also a style that is going to, like, they're going to have to change kind of how they play as well with this group. I don't know, man. Like, I think year one is going to be, like just kind of okay. And it wouldn't shock me at all if they're an NIT team or a fringe NCAA tournament team in year one. And then Mutz figures out, okay, you know what? I've had enough of this BS. I'm going to go get some dudes in LA.
Yeah. Yeah. I laugh at the idea of Eric Musselman and the way that he runs his program, being able to develop a culture that lasts more than 1 year. Like everything he does is fast forward, man. He goes and rebuilds rosters every year. That's his strength. That's the way that he does it, is he finds transfers. He gets the new staff members. He finds a way to be able to get it together. They struggle in November and December, sometimes into January. And then by February and March, once he's figured out the plays that work, the matchups that work, what guys he has that can win in certain situations, then that's when they're able to make their run. And I just, I looking at the pieces that they have, I don't know how many people they have on that team that can go out there right now and win one-on-one matchups. And you can kind of trust them to be able to do that.
No, but they will win a spelling bee. No problem. I'm betting on USC in any spelling bee right now.
Any spelling bee. Well, listen, those are the three teams that have added the most players so far. We're going to look at the teams coming up next that probably need to continue adding more players, whether that's Kentucky, whether that's Arkansas, whether that's Louisville, whether that's Indiana. There's a lot of big name programs out there that have to go out and fill out the rest of their rosters. Some of them got commitments over the weekend. We'll talk about that coming up next. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We are going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners, the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. We are live. It is Tuesday night here. We're streaming on YouTube, and we are streaming over on Stadium. Rob Dauster, Jeff Goodman here. Goodman, we got to talk about Arkansas a little bit, and we got to talk about Louisville a little bit, and we got to talk about Indiana a little bit. We'll probably get into Duke in the next segment, but I want to start with this. Kentucky has landed a player that is not an incoming freshman. Mark Pope was able to get a commitment from Colin Chandler, who was previously committed to him at BYU. That was last week. Over the weekend, he got a commitment from Travis Perry, a local Kentucky kid that probably wasn't going anywhere other than Kentucky. Fingers crossed. Maybe he ends up being the next Reed Shepherd. Who knows? But the big name that they landed was Amari Williams, transfer from Drexel. And a question I got, I was actually hit up by a buddy of mine who is a big Kentucky fan. And he basically said, if Mark Pope is supposed to be this guy that plays this 5-out style, pace, space, we want shooters everywhere, we want passers everywhere, we want all this, why did he go out and get a guy that is one of the best defensive players that doesn't really have range outside of wherever he can dunk it from? Talk to me about this Amari Williams commitment to Kentucky and what it means for Mark Pope.
Well, yeah, that's not Amari Williams' strength. He's not a guy who's going to step out and super skilled in the offensive end. He's not even a guy that you could throw it to really in the low post end. He's really good defensively, really good passer for a big, runs the court well, all of that. Here's what I think Mark Pope was probably figuring out at this point. Like, I need a big. There just aren't a lot of those skilled bigs out there right now in the portal, Rob, because those guys go to the NBA right away, right? They're not hanging around college. Those guys are one and done, a lot of them. So to me, most of the bigs that you have in the portal right now are that type, right? Like, I mean, Great Osibor, right? I mean, he's not nearly as big even as Amari Williams, and they're still in the equation for somebody like him. But, you look at some of these bigs, Jonas Adu. It's not, again, if they're that good and their upside is that high, they're not sticking around for another year. They're lottery picks. So I think really Amari Williams will help in a way, again, that what he is at least is he's a guy who can move the ball and find open shooters. And if you surround him with 4 guys who can make shots, listen, Mark Pope's team is not going to look like it looked at BYU. He doesn't want it to look like it looked at BYU. He wants some athletes to be able to mingle in and put in there with some of these shooters. He doesn't want a team full of, honestly, 5 white dudes that aren't athletic, that can shoot it and can't really beat guys off the bounce.
Yeah, and what I'll also say about Ali Khalifa is he played 19 minutes a game last year. Part of what his value is being able to be a different look when Fousseyni Traore wasn't out there, right? Like a lot of the Fousseyni Traore played 18 minutes last year. Ali Khalifa played 19 minutes. Fousseyni Traore is much more in the Amari Williams role in terms of being a guy that is kind of stuck in around the paint. He's not as good defensively as Amari Williams is. And I'll also say that smart, creative coaches have figured out ways to be able to use non-shooters to create space. One thing that we saw UConn do really well last year, and anybody that watched Dan Hurley's interview with JJ Redick will be very well aware of this, but using big guys as screeners and using them off the ball to be able to kind of create space in different kind of actions. And I guarantee, I promise you that Mark Pope has watched enough of what teams do with like Rudy Gobert in the NBA, what UConn did with Donovan Clingan and what UConn did with Samson Johnson last year to be able to allow them to run the offense that they did with a 5-man that was offensively not going to step away from the basket all that much. So I'm not worried about it. Having a guy that can be an anchor defensively, even if he plays 20 to 25 minutes a game, there's quite a bit of value in the league with as many good, talented big guys as the SEC has. It'll be really interesting to see how the rest of this roster kind of fills out. Like I feel like we keep having stuff to talk about with Kentucky, but a lot of it is just like, okay, they're getting a visit from this kid. They're still in the mix for this kid. So I think in the next probably week to 10 days, we will find out a lot more about what Kentucky's going to end up being and whether or not they can land some of these players. Coach Cal also got a commitment, Goodman. He now has 2 players on his roster. In addition to Big Z, they just landed Carter Knox, Kevin Knox's younger brother, who is one of the best scorers in the high school ranks. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was Jonathan Gavoni of ESPN that posted this. He is the first player to ever in 3 straight seasons lead 15U EYBL in scoring, 16U EYBL in scoring, and then the 17U EYBL in scoring. He is, as the kids say, Jeff, a walking bucket.
Yeah, he is. And no surprise. I mean, listen, kids committed to Kentucky largely because of John Calipari. So those kids who committed to him, we'll see if the kid, Jaden Quaintance, if he follows him. He's also looking, I think, Memphis right now as well as Arkansas, a man-child. I don't know if you were there and you saw him with me in AAU ball last summer, but young kid who's got to be there for 2 years. I don't know how good he's going to be as a freshman. I think it's going to take him some time, but guys like that are probably going to follow John Calipari as long as he's got the NIL to be able to deliver to him, which apparently he does. So I feel like the key is for Cal, and this is what I talked about a few minutes ago, like Pope, Cal, those guys, Pat Kelsey, you got to bring some guys with you from your former place, right? So he's brought Big Z. I think it's a priority that he brings DJ Wagner, who I didn't love, but like his sophomore year, I think if he buys in, I think he'll take a jump and be that much better. And he knows Cal's system. You have to bring some. You're not going to go to a Final Four, to me, putting together a team with like 12 dudes that you've never coached before in a setting that they've never been and you've never been before. That's virtually impossible to do. So you got to bring, Big Z, a couple other guys. Ugana Onyensu went in the portal today. I don't know if I'd take him if I was Cal. But Aaron Bradshaw obviously didn't follow him, went to Ohio State. A lot of guys went to the NBA. So Cal's going to have his work cut out for him in year 1, just because of the mix of newcomers to him and to the program.
I would probably take Onyenso if you were able to get him. I think he's such a good defensive weapon and is a perfect complement to Big Z. And for the record, DJ Wagner averaged 10 points and 3.5 assists as a freshman. He is not a perfect player. He is a really good player that if he stays in college for 4 years has a chance to be an All-American, right? Part of the negativity, I guess, towards DJ Wagner last year had to do with the fact that every single time he played, it meant that one of Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd wasn't on the floor. And that was the bigger issue than anything that has to do specifically with DJ Wagner. He's going to continue to get better. And if I'm Coach Cal, that's one of the guys that I am absolutely prioritizing in the portal. Make sure you get DJ Wagner coming in.
Hey, you mentioned before. Well, I just want to go back to what you mentioned before, and you said something when we were talking about Nelly Davis. Yes, my favorite player in the portal and one of my favorite players in the country, that you didn't think he would be a good fit at Arkansas with John Calipari. I respectfully disagree with you there. I actually think Cal would be really good for him because he's coached a lot of players like Nelly Davis and a lot of personalities like Nelly Davis before. Why are you kind of anti Nelly going to Arkansas?
I just don't think Cal really knows how to use guards, right? I think there's a lot of places that Nelly could go where a player with his skill set would have a better fit. But I will tell you this, if he goes to Kentucky, then next year he'll average like 12, 13, 14 points. And then within 2 years after he leaves Coach Cal's tutelage, he's going to end up being an All-NBA player like a Devin Booker, like a Tyrese Maxey, like a Tyler Hero. So like the best thing that could happen to Nelly Davis is to go underperform when he's at under Coach Cal's tutelage, because it's going to guarantee he's an all-star at the NBA level. Just let me get my shots in here, Goodman. I'm having a little bit of fun. You mentioned Louisville. They've added a couple pieces. Corin Johnson's there. Javon Hadley's there. Ali Khalifa is there. I also want to mention Indiana here too, because they added Kanan Carlisle in addition to Miles Rice and Umar Ballo. We talked about Ballo and Rice on one of last week's show. I can't remember when it is. Adding Carlisle gives them another wing. They are in the mix for a couple of the shooters that are still in and around the portal, and a couple that have entered the portal in the last couple of days, I guess. Where do you stand on Indiana right now? Let's start with Indiana. Where do you stand on them right now? Because you always have big opinions on your Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just don't know if I trust Woody. Like, that's the biggest thing for me. If I was Mike Woodson and I coached arguably the worst three-point shooting team in the country a year ago, I would go out and I would get like dudes that are going to be starters that can shoot the hell out of the ball, right? Like, that would be where I would start. Now, Luke Goody's a nice player, and they may get him from Illinois, and he can shoot the hell out of the ball. But, he is a rotation guy, is he not, Rob?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
to me, instead of, like Carlisle, Miles Rice, you threw the stats out to me last week that, he was shooting like 38% or something like that before, he went over 22.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet on – I would bet on the Miles Rice jumper being more than what it was towards the end of the year, whereas Kanan Carlisle, I think he's more of a scorer than he is a shooter.
Yeah, I would have gotten the best damn shooter in the portal. That's what I would have done. That's where I would have started. Like, instead of shelling out all this money for Umar Ballo, I would have shelled out all this money for the best damn shooter scorer in the portal, period. That's where I'm starting. Like, do you disagree with me there? Like, isn't that where you would start?
I would definitely try to add more shooters. I would have tried to downsize my lineup more than continue to add big bodies. Like, I do think that they needed a 5-man. I don't think that you can go into a season having Malik Renault be your starting 5. I think he is really great as a 4. I would have looked for more of a 4 spacing 5. Somebody like a Danny Wolf, someone along those lines. More than somebody, Umar Ballo, who may not be able to play the end of games because of his inability to make free throws. But I would have tried to find ways to get lineups where Mackenzie Mbaka was at the 4 instead of at the 3. But I don't hate adding Umar Ballo. I just don't know if that's the best way to necessarily invest your resources, especially if they add a couple of the other shooters that they've been kind of linked to. I don't know if I
You know
want to
who I
say
would
those
have
names
loved?
out.
You know who?
Who?
You know who I would have loved in Bloomington? I'm not sure if you could have gotten him. Probably not. But Aiden Mahaney. Like, I would have spent all my money on Aiden Mahaney.
you love those St. Mary's dudes so much. Every single one of
No,
them.
but I
If
love
you could have
Mahaney.
taken if you could have taken the entire St. Mary's team and transported it to Bloomington, then I think you probably would have done it. If you could just taken that
Listen.
last year's St. Mary's team and give them the Indiana, like the candy striper pants and the Indiana Crimson, what is it, Crimson and Quarry or whatever it's called, or Crimson and Cream. I think that's what I think you would have been very happy if you could have done that.
All I know is if Alex Ducas's back didn't lock up, UConn wouldn't have a single title right now. Not one. Not one. I mean, you talk about repeating, they wouldn't have beaten St. Mary's. They would have been done. But Dukas is back. That was the difference maker. Danny Hurley should send a thank you card and maybe some extra NIL to Alex Dukas.
You know what I was thinking about the other day, Jeff? I was thinking about what Hurley could have done this year and how dominant they could have been if they were just as talented as Indiana was.
Yeah, well.
All right, real quick, let's talk about
my tweet. Wait, you can't just say it without explaining because this is what you do.
I can do whatever I
said
want.
Their starting five that night was comparable. They didn't have Steph Castle, who last I checked, and I've been saying it all year, is a top 5 pick. Now, Klingen's going to go higher than he should, but to me, Khalil Ware and Klingen are comparable talent-wise. Talent-wise, they're comparable.
Okay.
And one guy
Let's talk
can
about
coach.
Louisville.
Hey, one guy can coach, and one guy, maybe not.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about Louisville. We mentioned last time we were on Rain Smith, Terrence Edwards, your boy James Scott, who you said you think is going to end up playing in the NBA. They've added Corin Johnson, they've added Javon Hadley from Colorado, and they've added Ali Khalifa, who is going to end up redshirting this next season. I do think that out of all of the teams that we've talked about in that kind of region, Kentucky, Arkansas, Indiana, Louisville, I would probably have Louisville at the top of the list right now in terms of where I would bet on them finishing this season. Is that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're going to have a chance to be a tournament team, I think, when all is said and done. And if you're Louisville, you're going to feel good about the team because they're going to play hard. The culture is going to be set in the right direction. I'm not sure they're going to be a tourney team, but like they'll be in the mix. You know, at least you'll be an NIT team to me if you're Louisville. And the pieces are going to fit together. They already do. They're going to add a couple more guys, certainly. And I don't know. I just feel good about the direction that this program is headed. So as those fans go to the Kentucky Derby next weekend, I think they can put down some bets, feeling pretty good about Pat Kelsey at Louisville, getting this thing going and making them relevant again soon.
The vibes are high in Louisville. That's the best way to put it, right? Like the vibes are trending in the right direction where it's very easy to kind of flip that switch, but I do think that it matters, man. Like having positivity around the program, having a fan base that is going to show up and put, 23,000 people that fit in the Yum Center. You put 23,000 people in there, even if you have a team that's like a 500 team in the ACC, it means that you're going to be a very difficult place to play. And if you could win most of your home games, then you got a really good chance of finding a way to be above 500 in the ACC. And if you're above 500 in one of the Power 5 conferences, right? And trust me, there are only Power 5 anymore. Pac-12 doesn't exist. Power 5 conferences, you're going to have a very good chance to be an NCAA tournament team this year. So I think it matters. It matters. Having that, being exciting enough that you're able to have a home court advantage. I mean, let's go back to the Kentucky-Louisville game from last year, right? Do you remember watching that game, Jeff? Do you remember how loud it was every time Kentucky scored?
I didn't watch it because it was irrelevant. Yeah.
It was a home game for Kentucky in Louisville. So that's not going to happen again this season. Listen, we have a lot more to get to. We got to talk about Baylor getting Jeremy Roach because I think Baylor has a chance to once again be a top 5 kind of a team this year. And also, Duke's added a couple pieces in the portal, and I am suddenly much less concerned about them than I was about 3 or 4 days ago. We got to talk about the Blue Devils and John Shire here as well. That is coming up next. It's time to talk about Vaulted. Vaulted is an app that allows you to store your predictions now and forever. It also allows you to challenge your friends to prove that your takes are, in fact, smarter than theirs. But what makes Vaulted great is that it allows you to keep all the receipts that you need to prove that your friends are not as smart as they think they are. With that in mind, let's roll through the 5 worst Vaulted predictions that were made on the field of 68 after dark this season. On November 6th, Jeff Goodman predicted that St. Mary's would make it back to the Final Four. They lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. On November 29th, it was predicted that Arkansas would win the SEC. They finished 12th out of 14 teams. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. On December 28th, it was predicted that Memphis would make it to the Final Four. They did not make the NCAA tournament. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. On December 13th, it was predicted that Michigan State would win the Big Ten. They finished in 6th place. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. On December 29th, it was predicted that Miami would return to the Final Four this season. They finished 14th out of 15 teams in the ACC. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. So download the Vaulted app that's spelled VLTED from the App Store now and start keeping all of those receipts. Welcome back to the Tuesday evening edition of The Field. It's 68 After Dark. Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me. We are live on our YouTube channel. We are streaming over on Stadium, and we have some things to talk about here, Jeff. I want to start with Baylor because Baylor went out into the portal, and they landed themselves, I think I would make the argument, the best point guard that was available on this year's market. All due respect to Nelly Davis, I think he's more of a combo. Baylor got Jeremy
Roach is a point guard? Roach is a point guard?
I think he's as close. Roach is the literal definition of a point guard. When you look up point guard in the dictionary, what it says right there is a picture. If you look at it on Wikipedia, you got a picture right there of Jeremy Roach. He is as point guards get. Either way, he committed to Baylor, which means that they now have Jeremy Roach, they now have Rob Wright, they now have VJ Edgecombe, and I think you can make the argument that they have a roster that is as talented as anybody in the Big 12. And Scott Drew, coming back, Scott Drew said no to Louisville, he said no to Kentucky, but he said yes to being right back in the mix as a Big 12 title contender. What do you make of the Bears now that they have Jeremy Roach in the mix?
I mean, I think they paid a lot of money, a lot of NIL for Jeremy Roach, to be honest. I like Jeremy Roach as a good piece. And again, fifth-year kid now. He's been there. He's done that. I actually compare him a little bit to like Adam Flagler, who was there. I think they're similar in some ways. Both really good shooters. Both can run the team. They can play off the ball, high character. I think it fits Baylor. The key for me is who they get up front and will they get Jonas Adu? I think right now they're probably in the lead for Jonas Adu, but there's some other teams obviously in the mix. We'll see if they end up getting him or not, but the Tennessee transfer, would be significant for them because they need some other experienced dudes, at a high level. Edgecombe is super talented. But when I saw him last summer, he was up and down. I think it's going to take some time for him. I don't think he's going to come out of the gates like Jacoby Walter did this past season for Baylor.
But I don't think that they need him with Jeremy Roach there and with Robert Wright there. Like I don't think that they need him to be that level of score. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe they get Jaden Nunn and Jalen Bridges back for at least one more season. Langston Love is still there, a former McDonald's All-American who's dealt with injuries quite a bit. But I think with Jeremy Roach and Jaden Nunn, you really just need a guy on the wing who's more of a complementary scorer. And I think that that's what they're going to get out of Edgecombe. But yeah, the key is going to end up being Jonas Adu. So much of what Scott Drew does is built around having that kind of like rim running defensive menace at the 5 spot. And we saw Yves Missy be really good in spurts in that role and struggle at times in that role. And I think having a defensive anchor would be it would be a big deal. And I think if they were able to land him, that's one where we will be leading a show at some point with Jonas Adu committing to Baylor. Let's talk about Duke. So they lost 7 players in the portal. There were basically just 2 guys coming back. It was Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster were the 2 guys from last season that were coming back to school, with all of those freshmen coming in. And we were concerned about that. That was one of the things that we led our show with last year. Is like, last week, how worried should we be about Duke, about John Shire, about everything happening in and around Durham now that Cooper Flagg is coming in, and you have 7 guys that are leaving the program in the transfer portal. Since then, they went out and they got Mason Gillis, who, frankly, I think is an absolutely perfect piece to put alongside Cooper Flagg and to put into that program. And they got Malik Brown from Syracuse, who is another guy that I think fits really well alongside Cooper Flagg. So I am back on the Duke bandwagon. I think that there are going to be a couple more pieces that end up committing there, but I really like what they've added, the veteran presence that they went out and they got in the portal.
Got to surround Cooper Flagg with the right guys, and that means shooters, right? And Mason Gillis, while he didn't shoot it well in the national title game, is a proven shooter. Shot the hell out of the ball all of last season, and is a veteran who can kind of protect Cooper Flagg on the court. Malik Brown, not a great shooter, so we'll kind of see how that goes. But, the key is still going to be Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster, right? Those dudes are going to play a lot of minutes this year. If Proctor can do what we thought he was going to do a year ago, then I think Duke's in business here. They've also got, a rim protector coming in. This kid, I don't even know how you pronounce it. Kaman Malawak. Yeah, I don't know him, but I know he's 7'1", and I've seen video of him, and man, I don't know if he's Derek Lively, but he looks a little bit like Derek Lively. I don't think he's going to be able to do that next year. Obviously, Patrick Ngamba is going to help him up front. We saw him last summer. He's talented, and he came on. I think they're probably one guy away still. I think they're one guy away, one other transfer away from being a team that I would say, like, okay, you know what? They can maybe make a Final Four run. Now, what we forget about this team is, like, remember a year ago now, Rob, we were like, what the hell is happening with North Carolina? Remember? They came off the horrible year, and, Bacon and RJ came back, but Caleb was gone, and, Larry Nance Jr., that Pete Nance didn't work out. And look at what they did last year. So I think a lot of it is just getting the right transfers that, again, fit into – you're building around Cooper Flagg here. That's who you're building around. Your centerpiece. And again, he's not a centerpiece who's going to average 20 a game, but he is the guy you're building around this year because so much is going to be run through him. So you got to have the right guys around him, shooters, older dudes that physically are going to be able to stand up and protect him because he is young, although he doesn't look like a young, reclassed freshman. So I think that's what John Shire is trying to do here. But again, for those people looking at, wow, they got crushed in the portal. All right, like Mark Mitchell doesn't work with Cooper Flagg. Neither does Sean Stewart. Like those dudes don't work with Cooper Flagg. So to be honest, that was addition by subtraction based on the personnel that you have right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it addition by subtraction, but I would say that that's one of those ones where we talked a little bit last week about how not every player that enters the portal is a player that is deciding on his own, saying, I want to leave. There are a lot of situations, and I'm not saying specifically Sean Stewart, but I'm just saying that that there's not every single player that left Duke is going to be one that is leaving Duke because of he wanted a different place to be at. And I do think it's interesting, Goodman, that they went out and they got 2 really versatile veteran pieces that can be a little bit switchable. Like Mason Gillis can guard up and can guard down, right? I think Malik Brown is athletic enough to be switchable. Cooper Flagg might be as switchable as anybody coming into college next year. And I do think that if you are going to build a roster around allowing Cooper Flagg to do the winning things that he can do on the defensive end and let him kind of be the cog offensively that you run things around. I don't think he's someone that you run offense through. But I think that if you allow him to kind of be the 1A and be the do winning things, I think it's really going to help your program quite a
You're
bit.
not going
And
to run
just
your
for the
offense
record,
through Cooper Flag? You're not going to run your offense through Cooper Flag?
I don't think that you give him the ball for like 25 possessions. No, I don't think that that's necessarily what you do. I think he's more of like a winning. He makes the winning plays kind of a guy. I think I don't know. We can talk about that later because I just want to say for the record, you doubted the additions that Hubert Davis made in the portal last year. I was the one touting them. I hyped them up.
Yeah.
I never get wins. I almost never get anything right. I finally got something right, and I'm taking my victory laps. Michigan State, Tom Izzo went out in the transfer portal, and he landed a commitment today, Jeff. Tom, way to get it done. Frankie Fiddler, transfer from Omaha. We had him on the show when we did SoCon, when we did Summit League Media Day. Averaged 20 points, 6 boards, shot 45% from the floor, 35% from three, a 6'7" wing, a really talented scorer. What do you make of this addition, and how proud are you of Tom Izzo to go for going out into the portal and actually adding a piece this season?
I mean, he finally found the code to get in the portal. Like, I feel like he had lost it for a full year. Like, he had no idea. And somehow he found it. Like, he was looking through his desk drawer and he was like, oh shit, like, here's the portal code. All right, let me get in here. Frankie Fiddler, the Fiddler. And listen, I'm proud of you, Tom. I'm proud of you. You're adapting, because if you don't, you're not going to be relevant again at the highest level. Like, of course, Michigan State's going to be good, but can they compete for a national title or a Final Four appearance again? The only way Tom Izzo is going to be able to do that is to hit the portal and hit it hard. And, you know, Frankie Fiddler's a nice player, Rob. I'm not sure. Now, again, the one thing I'll say is, you know, you look down the list of the portal guys and you say to yourself, like, how many guys are program changers? And again, I'll go back to it. If they were program changers, they wouldn't be coming back to school for the most part. There's some exceptions that, again, like Hunter Dickinson, he's a program changer, but he can't get paid in the NBA, right? So he's going to come back to school for another year, most likely, I think, to Kansas. But a lot of these guys, they're not program, like AJ Storr. Like, he's a really good player. He had a really good year at Wisconsin. But, like, he's not a game changer for Kansas. He's a really good player for Kansas. So I think that's where you look at it and you say,
the argument.
The difference from Frankie Fiddler to AJ Storr, the gap isn't humongous. So I think the key is going to be, again, like, can Frankie Fiddler have a major impact and fit in with what else is coming back for Tom Izzo and East Lansing?
Well, I mean, look, I think that Michigan State's in a better spot than a lot of people are going to probably give them credit for. I do think that they have a couple of quality freshmen that are going to become sophomores. I think that the one thing Izzo has done is find a way to be able to keep guys coming back. And there is a little bit of a culture there. Maybe it's not necessarily the culture that you want, but to me, the key to their season, like, is Jeremy Fears living up to the hype that he had coming in as a point guard as a freshman, right? You got Trayvon Holloman coming back. AJ Hoggard Tom Izzo has already said that AJ Hoggard is not going to be coming back to Michigan State. So for me, it's the development of that sophomore class, and specifically Jeremy Fears. You need him to kind of live up to some of the hype that he had as a freshman coming in, because there weren't a lot of point guards that were that people were as excited about as him as a freshman. Is that crazy to say coming in?
No, I mean, he's going to be really good. Again, like, you just, and the one thing is obviously getting rid of, like, Matty Sissoko. Like, you can't play like Cohen Carr and Matty Sissoko at the same time. Like, you can't have too many non-shooters on the court. And I think that's a key for Tom Izzo right now, is obviously you have to adapt to the way the game has changed too. Shoot more threes, have fewer guys. I know he loves the toughness of Sissoko and Konkar and those guys, but again, you can't accumulate too many of them, or else the spacing and the fact that you're not making enough threes to be able to win games.
I hear what you're saying. There's ways to get creative with it. UConn just won a second national title with Steph Castle and Donovan Clingan playing together. Now, when your two non-shooters are lottery picks, that's a different story. Right. But they also won last season with Adama Sanogo and Andre Jackson on the floor together. So it's not like you can't.
Matty Sissoko is not Donovan
Clingan. He was for 1 week at the start of the 2022-23 season. He was. He had 1 week where he looked like he was going to be an All-American, and then he came back to it. But shout out to Matty Sissoko. He's a great story, and he's one of those guys that sends a lot of his NIL money back home. So I am always rooting for Matty Sissoko. Just, sometimes you got to get these jokes off. Listen, when we come back, we are going to break down the top 10 available transfers, and fingers crossed that during this break, nobody commits, because chances are someone is going to end up committing to a program while we are in commercial. That's coming up next. Whether you are a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross-country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of The Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifiedhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system. Welcome back to the Tuesday evening edition of The Field of 68 After Dark. We are still here celebrating the fact that Tom Izzo went out in the portal and got himself a commitment from a guy that can average 20 points a game. The more I think about it, Jeff, the more I really like the fiddler heading to East Lansing. What we're going to do now is
I'm gonna open up my beer of Goody Two Shoes for Tom Izzo. Goody Two Shoes. I'm gonna crack it open. I've been waiting all year for this. I've had this in the freezer and in the refrigerator here all season to you, Tom, for hitting the portal.
Hey, Goodman, I'm going to speak for everybody else when I say, please. All right, let's get into the top 10 transfers that are still available. Chances are pretty good that at some point during the next 8 minutes in this conversation, one of these guys is going to end up committing somewhere, and we're going to have to blow everything up and start all over again. But we'll start with this. You can see on the graphic right there. Number 1, Nelly Davis, FAU transfer. We talked about him a little bit earlier. We'll dive into him more here in a second. Pop Isaacs, Aiden Mahaney, Cliff Amori, and Great Osabar round up the top 5. And your boy, Jonas Adu, potentially a Baylor Bear. Kobe Brea, we're going to talk about him in a second. Rylan Griffin, Vlad Golden, and Andre Stojakovic, the son of Peja, who is a better than the 32% that he shot would lead you to believe. Goodman, let's start with this, because I think I would say Nelly Davis is the only guy currently on this list, and maybe the only guy in the portal in the portal during this year's window where you could legitimately say he will be an All-American wherever he ends up. I don't know if I'd say that about anybody else. I think you would say that about Nelly Davis. We've heard a lot of numbers with 2 commas, potentially with crooked numbers in the front for some of the players that have committed. To me, Nelly Davis is the guy that I would have circled, and I would have said, if I have 2 commas in my NIL budget, I'm spending 2 commas on Nelly Davis.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one guy that you feel like, okay, you could just give the ball to and say, hey, go get me a bucket, and he can do that. As I said, a lot of these other guys are really good college players. But this freshman class, it's good, but it's not going to blow you away again, and you have the extra COVID year again. So older dudes are going to be more valuable than these freshmen because there's a huge age disparity again for the final year. And again, this freshman class is not going to there's some good players. Obviously, Cooper Flagg's going to be somebody that's talked about all season long ad nauseum. But a lot of the guys that you're looking at on our list here, Great Osibor. Hey, he's a really good player, but a lot of the damage he did was against guys his size or smaller in the Mountain West. Now, if he goes up a level, he's going to have to deal with length and athleticism consistently. Can he score against those guys? As much as I love Aiden Mahaney, and I do, he didn't have a great year at St. Mary's this past year. But what if he goes to a Creighton? Imagine Aiden Mahaney coach. Now, again, he was coached by Randy Bennett, one hell of a coach at St. Mary's. But imagine going from Randy Bennett to Greg McDermott. Talk about two really, really good basketball minds and X's and O's guys.
Yeah, if you have Aiden Mahaney out there, I think the fact that he would be playing in front of Ryan Kalkbrenner would be a game changer for him because it's much like having Mitchell Saxon behind you. A lot of your defensive inefficiencies can get mad. I'm not saying Aiden Mahaney's a bad defender, but he's not Davion Mitchell. He's not off night, right? So being able to have that rim protector behind you, I think really would matter. The one name I'd push back on you on here is Pop Isaacs, because I think Pop Isaacs to me is in the same conversation as the likes of the Kobe Bryas and the Rylan Griffins and the Andre Stojakovic's. To me, he is going to be at his best as the second option on a team. If he is the first option on a team, I think that kind of limits what the ceiling of that team could be. If you put him in a situation where he's the number two guy, where he's a floor spacer, where he's getting kind of those secondary actions, I think that's the best situation for him. And I don't know, I think the biggest thing that you'd run into with Pop is that he probably views himself more as the go-to guy. So I think that that's a delicate balance and a needle that you'd have to thread if you are going out and getting him in the portal. Like if you gave me the choice between spending the money that you would spend on Pop Isaacs and the money that I would get for, let's just say, Kobe Bryant or Ryan Griffin, give me Bryant or Griffin over Pop Isaacs.
Depends if you have a point guard or not, right? I mean, you're going to need a point guard, and that's what Pop Isaacs is. And, oh, by the way, he played hurt all year. He just had hip surgery. So he played hurt all year. That's why, to be honest, his shooting numbers weren't what they were his freshman year at Texas Tech. But, he's a guy who's tough, who brings it every night. Again, I'm not saying – I think you can honestly, other than Nelly Davis, from 2 to 25 in the portal.
Yep.
I don't think there's a big difference between a lot of these guys. For me personally, if I'm spending my money, I'm spending on somebody I know that is gonna bring it every night, is gonna be able to make plays with the ball in their hands. That's important to me. And Pop Isaacs can do that. He can go get one. He can shoot it from deep. He can make his guys better. And oh, by the way, like I said, he was not playing it anywhere near 100% last year.
And the dude competes his ass off. I don't want this to sound like I don't like Pop Isaacs, because I love
come around.
Pop Isaacs.
You have come around on Pop Isaacs.
I had doubts. I mean, look, man, I did not think that he had the willingness to guard that he does and the toughness that he does. And last season really impressed me.
He heard you. He heard your skepticism, and he said,
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. Shout out to Rick. Shout out to his dad.
I'm going to show this clown. I'm going to show this clown.
Do me a favor. Let me run my show here, please. Let me run my show here. What I will say is this. I think there's a reason why you look at a guy like Kobe Bryant and you see a list that includes Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, and UConn, right? I think when you look at Rylan Griffin, there's a reason why somebody like a Bill Self has targeted him in the portal. That's the only point that I was making. I think Pop Isaacs is going to be a guy where you need him to be the number one guy, where I think he would probably be best kind of as a number two option. Let's go through this. All right. there are 4 big guys on your top 10 players list. Cliff Amore, Great Osobor, Jonas Adu, and Vlad Golden. Vlad, Jonas, and Cliff are all kind of the same player, more or less. Vlad probably is a little bit more post-game than those other 2. Cliff might be a little bit of a better athlete. And then Great Osobor is more of like a playmaking 4, stretch 4. Rank those 4 for me in terms of how impactful they will be at their next stop.
Who do we got? Vlad, Great, Cliff,
and Jonas Adu.
I'm going to go Cliff 1 because I know what I'm going to get at the highest level from him. That's the difference. Like, I know what I'm getting from Cliff. He's done it over and over. I'll go Vlad 2. I think he got a lot better. Great worries me a little bit. Again, just because he's making that jump. And so I'll go Adu 3 and Great 4, to be honest. And I love Great Osobor. I love him.
Yeah, I think Great Osobor, if you could put him in a situation where, and I'm just throwing this out there, he's playing next to a guy like an Amari Williams, where you know you have that defensive presence, where you can kind of allow him to be the floor spacer, playing about 15 to 18 feet away from the basket, allow him to do all the things that he does great, as opposed to making him rely on being like a 5-man defensively. I think that's the best situation for him. I think all 4 of those guys, the key is going to be where they end up and the situation that they are in. Like if they are, let's just say, at Kentucky and there's other players around them, I think that's a good situation for them. But listen, we are doing these episodes of After Dark every Tuesday and Thursday night throughout the spring, at least until the NBA draft, and then we'll kind of reassess and see what it looks like afterwards. But with the portal going on, we wanted to make sure that we connected with you guys at least twice a week. So every Tuesday, every Thursday, 9 p.m., right here on the Field of 68, right here on Stadium. That's where you'll be able to find us. For Jeff Goodman, for our producer, Trevor Valise, go Illini. My name is Rob Dauster. We'll see you guys on Thursday night. Chug that beer, Goodman.
All right, now pleased to be welcome in a pair of future Georgetown Hoyas, Micah Peavy, Malik Mack, and good to have you guys on. I don't know how well you guys know each other. We got the old grizzled veteran here in Micah and the young dude in Malik. Do you guys know each other?
Yes, sir. When I found out who Georgetown was trying to bring in, and I was thinking about going there, I actually hit him up, and I was just like, "What are you thinking about?" And then we're here now.
So, all right, let's first go through Malik. You're kind of the young dude here, coming out after a freshman year in which you set the world on fire here at Harvard, had an incredible season, and then you go in the portal. And my guess is a lot of people are like, what is a dude? What is he doing? He's leaving Harvard. He is leaving Harvard. How many people hit you up and said, Malik, what are you doing? Why are you leaving Harvard?
A couple people hit my phone personally and asked the question, but most of it was just on social media. I feel like my contact, my phone, and all my people in my circle, they didn't really ask that question, so I felt comfortable in making that decision. And I talked it over with my coaches and my people in my circle, and I felt like that was just the best choice for me. But the outside noise is mostly where it comes from. People in my circle didn't really ask that question too much.
So what was the process like? You go in the portal, and I don't think a lot of people understand how insane it is once you hit the portal. And again, your phone blowing up. Take us through kind of what the process is like and how it is, like how overwhelming it is to try to figure this thing out quickly.
Yeah. As soon as you jump in the portal, all the coaches have your contact information. So your phone is just constantly buzzing random numbers. You don't know who it is. So every time a number calls, you got to pick it up, see who it is. And there's a lot of schools contacting you, texting you. And for me, I just wanted to try to get in and get out, figure out the schools who love my game and who really wanted me there. So there's a lot of schools that contact you, but you could kind of tell from which coaches hit you up and how they're talking about your game and how much film they watched about you. You know who's serious about you and who kind of just wants another player on their team.
So, Micah, you've been through this before. After your freshman year, you did this at Tech. Probably seems like an eternity ago, and it was completely different because 2 reasons, right? One, you had to sit out. Most kids had to sit out when you transferred back then. Number
Mhm.
two, NIL wasn't involved. Like,
Yeah.
take me through the difference now compared to when you did it and you went from Texas Tech to TCU.
I'll say the big difference is just knowing how to pick between what's real and what's not, like what the different schools are saying. Because like you said, I've been through this before. The NIL piece, it is a big difference just because when I first went through it, there was nothing talked about money or anything. But I have a good foundation. My family is a big part of that's who I talk to the most. So, and my dad's a big part of it, is a basketball coach. So he helped me a lot with this process. And yeah, so I just chose Georgetown.
All right, Malik, a lot of people haven't seen your game. Mike has been around forever. He's like the old dude here that everybody knows. They've seen him play 100 times. For you, let's face it, like a lot of people don't know you nationally. A lot of people at Georgetown don't know what they're getting. Describe your game for those who haven't seen you play.
I'm a quick point guard who can shoot the ball off the dribble, off the catch. It doesn't really matter. I feel like an underrated part of my game is my playmaking ability. I get my guys involved, shooters, athletic wings, big men, and then my leadership. I feel like I'm a great leader as well. And then defensively, I can get some steals as well. So I feel like that describes my game. A guard who can facilitate, but he can also score the ball as well.
Micah, how much have you seen Malik play? Like, have you watched a lot of tapes since he committed? Did you know his game well beforehand?
I mean, I saw a couple clips beforehand on like Slam or whatever it was on Twitter and stuff, but since entering the portal, I have got to watch a lot of clips and stuff on YouTube or just on Instagram. So yeah, I'm familiar with this game.
So you're a Texas guy.
Yeah.
You're coming out to the Northeast. First of all, you better get your winter coat.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Number two, what led you to pick Georgetown? Because obviously, listen, it's a program that I know A. Cooley's going to get this thing going, but they didn't have a lot of success. They haven't had a lot of success in a while. What made you choose Georgetown?
Well, you said it, Ed Cooley. I trust him a lot. The things he said to me during the recruitment, and just I also got to talk to a lot of his former players, and yeah, so I talked to them a lot, and they just told me a lot of good things about him. And like I said, I trust what he said to me, and I believe that we're going to turn this program around and make it into a winning program in this first year we're there.
Malik, who else did you look at other than Georgetown when you were going through the process? Because I kind of heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, but you had not zeroed in on Georgetown, but certainly early on that they were a school that you were going to look at, maybe because of the academics as well. And you could get, obviously it's not Harvard, nothing else is Harvard, but it's really good academically as well as obviously high level basketball in the Big East.
Yeah, a lot of schools contacted me, but schools I was looking at most was Georgetown, Virginia, Texas. Had contact from a lot of different other schools, and but those are kind of the schools I kind of locked in on before I chose Georgetown.
Did you also look at how you would Jaden Epps obviously sticking around there, how you guys could play together in the backcourt?
Yeah, I definitely looked into that piece. I played with scoring guards before in the backcourt, so I feel like that's not really an issue with me. Just me and Epps just being able to find that balance, So playing with another scoring guard doesn't bother me at all. I've done it before, so I feel like I can do it again.
Hey, Mike, I keep giving you crap for this of being the Grizzle veteran, but I'm gonna give you power here. I'm gonna give you the power to make one rule change in college basketball. All right, you're running college hoops right now. It could be on or off the court. Anything you want. What would you change?
What would I change?
Yeah.
That's tough. I don't know if I kind of like the changes that's been happening. Like the transferring rule. I feel like that's a big thing that's changed right now, and I think it's a great change. So yeah, I don't know what I would change honestly. That's a hard question.
You know what I'd change?
What
An
would you
easy
do?
one for me would be 4 quarters.
4 quarters?
Yeah, instead
Okay.
of 2 halves. I go 4 quarters. Anything for you, Malik? After playing a year of college hoops, anything you change?
Nah, I mean the only thing I could think of is the 4 quarters. That's probably makes the most sense. But besides that, nah.
You guys like obviously NIL, all that. How much did that impact your decision, Micah? Like when you're going through it, I know you said like it's not everything, but how hard is it when you add that into the equation to try to make the best decision, not necessarily focused about money? Because again, it's hard. Like it's a lot of money now, but you also want to find the right situation for you because it can be all the money in the world, but if you're not playing and playing well and getting an opportunity, you're not going to be happy.
I'll just say for me, like you said, it wasn't about the money, but like it is a big deal because this is a year out of say because I went 4 years, so I could have chose to go on to the pro career, but I'm looking at it as my first year as a professional athlete because there is NIL involved. And yeah, I didn't choose a school because this was the most money or this. I need a spot where I can grow as a player, and so I'm using this as my first year as pro basketball, so I can get those bigger contracts because you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, listen, appreciate you guys joining us. Field of 68, pair of future Georgetown Hoyas, Micah Peavy, the experienced dude, and we got Malik Mack, the young gun here coming in, and looking forward to seeing what you guys do next year at Georgetown under Ed Cooley. So thanks for joining.